We're here at the St. George's Castle, popularly known as the Elmina Castle. Come along with us once again with Tripkoach as we explore the Ghanaian history.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Nicholas and I am your guide. Now, we are going to start the tour from this side, but before the tour begins, I have to give you a brief history of the castle. The name of this castle is St. George's Castle or Elmina Castle. And this castle was built by the Portuguese in 1482. We have another one in Accra, the capital city. We call it Osu Castle or Christiansborg Castle. Those from Denmark or the Danes built it in 1661. And also we have another one in Cape Coast. Cape Coast Castle was built by the British in 1665. Now, apart from the three castles, they built a lot of forts, but some of them are not in good shape. The forts that they built were more than 40. But when you follow the history, the Portuguese were the Europeans who came to this place first. They came here 1471, and they were here to trade and also to spread Christianity. They were here for gold, ivory, spices, and many more. And when the Portuguese were coming, they brought guns, gunpowder, tobacco, alcoholic beverages, even mirror in exchange of gold from the local people. Though they were here for gold, ivory, and others, but they were getting a lot of gold at that time. So they were interested in gold trade more than any other commodity. That is why the Portuguese named this place Elmina, because of gold they were getting in abundance. Elmina means the mine. It is not the original name. Before the coming of the Portuguese, the original name used to be Anomansa. Anomansaman. In English is inexhaustible water, or water that does not get finished. Yeah, that's the original name. You can also call this place Edina, either Elmina or Edina accepted. And Edina, according to the history, it's wrongly pronounced Portuguese word. Because when the Portuguese came, they saw this place to be a village. Small place. In their language, they pronounce village aldeia. So aldeia in Portuguese means village. And it is believed that the locals at that time could not pronounce the name well. And it was corrupted to Edina. So both Elmina and Edina we are using currently are not the original names. Anomansa used to be the name, Onoma Ensa. And even later, Anomansa became Kwamankwa Krum, because Kwamankwa was the name of a person who founded Anomansaman. Now, when the Portuguese first arrived, this castle wasn't built. And then they were sleeping in their big ships on the sea, but they were under tent here. You see, so all the goods from here straight to the ships. And as time went on, the trade was booming. It was expanding. So they needed places to sleep and also to store their goods. That is where the leader of the Portuguese went to see a chief. When they came with a leader. The name of the leader was Don Diego de Azambuja. And then the chief at that time was Nana Kwamina Ansa. So according to the history, the Portuguese went to the chief several times for this piece of land to be given. But initially, the chief was reluctant to give out the land, citing future cultural differences. But upon persuasions and assurances, the land was later given. And then they built this castle 1482. Now, when they built it, they were using all the rooms on the ground floor round as storerooms, all these rooms as storerooms. But when slave trade started, the same rooms were converted into dungeons where human beings were held. Slave trade started in 1500 or in the early part of 16th century, and that began what is known as transatlantic slave trade. The Portuguese spent 155 years here because the Europeans were attacking themselves. Even Dutch attacked the Portuguese 2 times, and then all the two attacks from seaward, this side. The first attack was in 1595. The Portuguese defeated them. They came back in 1625, still they were defeated. Now, in order for their presence to be felt, they built a fort along Cape Coast Accra Road, and then they launched another attack from inland. So the third attack, some came from inland. And the attention of the Portuguese was from this side, though some came from seaward and others also from inland. So the Portuguese could not do anything than to surrender. So 1637, 29th August, Dutch defeated the Portuguese and took over the building. And they were able to defeat the Portuguese with the help of some of the local people. Other than that, they wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to have come from inland. They said the Portuguese started cheating them. The scale that they used in measuring, they adjusted the scale. So the locals felt cheated. And also, the Portuguese also tried to monopolize the trade. So they intentionally signed an agreement known as Regimento Agreement. It was signed between the Portuguese themselves and the local people. Regimento Law or Regimento Agreement. And that agreement stated that the locals should only trade with the Portuguese and no any other company. Now, when you are caught trading outside the Portuguese, they have to cut off one of your years. So they were not happy with that law. I think thinking Dutch were their saviors, they all have the Dutch. And when Dutch took over, it was even worse. So as we are going around, you will see that we have two types of bricks. You see red bricks like these ones. So wherever you see the reddish bricks, the Portuguese brought them, and the yellow ones, look at the steps. Also the Netherlands added them. So it means when the Portuguese were here, the castle wasn't as big as we see. But when Dutch took over, they expanded it and rather developed it into a status of a castle you and I see today. So as I said, the Portuguese spent 155 years. When Dutch took over, they also spent 235 years. Yes, because later many people were against the trade. So some people formed society known as Society for the Abolition of Slave Trade. It was formed in 1787. People like William Wilberforce, Granville Sharp, Thomas Clarkson, a lot. So they had branches and started campaigning. So by 1807, British Parliament announced that the trade should be abolished. So they did that in 1807. And later, 1814, Dutch also abolished the trade due to industrial revolution and also on humanitarian grounds. Now, when everything was over, Dutch sold this castle to the British in 1872. British bought it. But in actual fact, Dutch and British swapped properties. They swapped possessions because British were having a fort in northern Sumatra in Indonesia. They gave that fort to the Dutch, and Dutch handed this one over to them. But they paid something because castle is bigger than a fort. Now, when British took over, British did not use this castle for slave trade. And it doesn't mean that they didn't take part. They also took part. I told you they were using the other one, Cape Coast Castle, which is about 20 minutes drive from here. Now, when British took over, they brought strong men here. And the men that were brought here were from West Africa. And they were from the English-speaking countries only. And these men were trained by the British in this castle, and they were fighting for the British during the Second World War. They fought for them in Burma and India. The name of the men were known as Royal West African Frontier Force. Royal West African Frontier Force. And after the Second World War, British used this castle as police training school in 1948. So they added the iron bars. You see, the iron rails, we have the same one over there. When they used the castle as police training school, policemen were climbing up and down for training or exercise. Yeah, so British were here till Ghana became independent state in 6 March 1957. They left peacefully, and Ghanaians also took over this one. So this castle is the oldest and then the largest in the whole world in terms of transatlantic slave trade. That means when we're talking of transatlantic slave trade, this is the oldest and then the largest castle in the whole world. And this castle was designated by UNESCO as one of the world's heritage monuments in 1979. As it stands now, the castle is 542 years old. That is the age of the castle. Now, the reason why they started transporting the Africans was that human labor were needed for plantations in America and even Caribbean. And according to the history, the Americans started using the native Indians. But they said they were not strong enough. Some of them were dying, diseases. And because they knew the route, some also tried to escape. So it was a big blow to them. And many people suggested that they should try the Africans and see whether it will work. There was a priest, Roman Catholic priest from Spain. The name of the priest is Bartholomew de las Casas. Bartholomew de las Casas. He was notable among those who suggested that they should try the Africans. And indeed, they captured some Africans. These Africans were sent to Hispaniola, and they saw that they were able to work. They resisted all kinds of weather, and they were also expert in agriculture. So since that time, the demand of the Africans became more and more. So I think this is a brief history. We are now starting the tour. The governor was up there. He was on top of everybody. And the middle one for the assistant governor. The rest of the rooms were for soldiers. We have the missionaries, and this side for the merchant. The soldiers, the missionaries, and also the merchant. Apart from that, the rest of the room that you see on the ground floor around were dungeons for the male slaves. So the male slaves were about 600 and the female slaves were about 400. So at one time, this castle held approximately 1,000 slaves at the time. Look at this side. This is the first Christian church they built in West Africa. Portuguese church. The Portuguese were Catholics, so this is the Catholic church. And they brought the red bricks, as I said. But when Dutch took over, Dutch were not Catholics. Dutch were Protestants. So they didn't see this church as their own. And what they did was that they divided this church into two. And they used the ground floor as their auctioning hall, where human beings were auctioned. Upper floor, a mess hall, like junior soldiers' mess. And then they built their own church, ironically, on top of the female dungeon. We call it Dutch Reform Church or Protestant Church. So there are two churches here. But when British came, they used the same church as classroom. Today, the same church is a museum. So pictures have been displayed over there, self-guided. So after the tour, if it is not closed, you can go there. Now, when you look up there, we have two watchtowers. This one and then the other one. Dutch soldiers were up to look on the sea for any possible attack when they were here. When British took over, they converted the towers into prisons. So British captured this king, Prempeh, Ashanti king, Nana Akwesi Ajiman Prempeh. 1896, the king was captured, and the king was imprisoned in this one for 4 years. Even from here, he was sent to Freetown in Sierra Leone for 1 year, and later exiled to Seychelles Island across the Indian Ocean. The same British also captured a queen mother warrior, Ya Asantewaa. Ya Asantewaa was also imprisoned in this one 1 year, and she was also exiled to Seychelles Island. So look, this is where they kept the irons, like branding irons. The male slaves were branded. So the irons with the initials on top. So we have initials like ITA, meaning International Trading Association. We have some like JSS, John Smith Slave. Yes, they put that side in fire, very hot, when removed to touch your chest, your arms, or your back. So the marks will be there for easy identification. And they said some of them died because of infections from the iron. So that's where they kept it. Let's continue. So when the ships came, all the male slaves who survived were forced through this to the door of no return. As you can see, slave exit to waiting boat. So this side, you have to mind your head. There is one step down. Mind your head and a step down. So the female slaves came down this way. They were coming from this side, and the bars that you see were not there. When slave trade was over, they placed the bars just to make sure nobody falls down. Also, there were steps. Today, the stairs have been destroyed, and as you can see, there is a drainage system constructed. Sometimes, when it rains heavily, it disturbs. So they did this whenever there is heavy downpour. The rains will just get out of the castle and then to join the ocean. So women, the female slaves came down this way, and the men were also from here. And through this, and that is to the ships. And this side, you have to bow very low, count 5 steps before you raise up your head. So look, this is the door of no return. All the slaves were forced through this, and the sea was very close. Today it has receded. So there was a ladder down. Small canoes took the captives right from here to the big ships off to America or Caribbean for plantation. Some of them were sent to Brazil, Haiti, Jamaica, Suriname, Guyana, Barbados, so many places for plantations. And according to the history, those who died at sea were more than those who died in the dungeons because of how they were packed in the ship. Yes, and because a lot of them died, visitors laid wreaths to remember those who died in the dungeons as well as those who also died at sea. So what they are saying is that those people, may their souls rest in perfect peace. And you can see some bottles, you see, hard liquor. You see, some of the visitors are not Christians because when they looked at the role that Christianity played, they doubt the scriptures. Yeah. So they also bring alcohol. They pour libation to call the spirits of our ancestors for protection, prosperity, and longevity. That's why you see the bottles around. Any question? Now let's see the female dungeons. So this is the female courtyard, and as I stated earlier, about 400 women were here, and I said 600 men, so about 1,000 at a time. And look, this is a cannonball they used to punish the female slaves. This ball, yeah, the balls were 8 at that time, and there were chains connected. That's why you can see there's a hole on top of this one. Now, when the Europeans came, only the men came without their wives. There were soldiers here, missionaries, merchants, governor, the governor's assistant. So some of them were raping the women. They were harassing the female slaves sexually. So those who refused to be raped, those who tried to escape, some were very strong, and then they were also fighting the masters. That's a punishment. The person will be chained to the balls, and you have to stand here. Either you sit, rain or sunshine, you have to be in. And that period, no food, no water. So I think for the women, punishment came in the form of public humiliation. When they see that you are very, very weak, and then you'll be released. And they did that just to break the spirits of the rest of the women down. So anytime you are called to do something, quickly you have to obey. So that is the purpose of it. Water reservoir. They connected pipes like this ones right on top of the building. So whenever it rains, it passes through. The water was filtered over there, and clean one will be harvested here. This covers the whole floor, the entire floor. We are all standing on it. And when it is full, we have 20,000 gallons of water for domestic use only. Look at this side. This is a balcony. According to the history, anytime the governor of the castle wants to rape one of the women or to satisfy his sexual desire, this is where the governor will stand because of his position. And they said some of them will be assembled as we are, and he chooses the one he likes. They have to fetch water. They fetch water for the one chosen by the governor to wash down. Maybe the person might have been in the dungeon for so long without taking her bath. And after the humiliation, they force the woman to climb this one. Let's have a look. The selected woman will be forced to climb this. There's a trap door on top. They have to open it and up the door to the governor's bedroom. After the rape, the woman still comes back as a slave. And because of what happened, a lot of them got pregnant. Because it wasn't only the governor. Some of the soldiers and others were also doing the same thing. Yeah, so those who were found pregnant were freed. But because some of them were from long distances, when they were freed, they could not trace their origin. So later they built houses outside the castle for the pregnant women, and then they brought the children here. The children were educated because they were light-skinned. Yeah, because of their skin color, they were educated. That is why today in Ghana, it is common to hear names like Van der Poel. We have Van Dyke, Johnson, Blankson, Wilson, and the rest of the names. All are as a result, yeah, Smith, Darlington. Now, among the dungeons for the female slaves, this is the largest one. All the dungeons here, this one is the largest. And because this one is the largest, 150 women were here. There was a door at the side closed, another door over there. Ventilation was from this one, the small one, and the one that you see at the end for light and air. And look, this is the original floor. So human beings were sleeping on the bed floor like this. And in this castle, there were no toilet facilities for the slaves. Because I made it clear that when they built it initially, they were using all the rooms on the ground floor as storerooms when they started trading in goods. When they shifted to slave trade, the same rooms were converted into dungeons. So they have to put buckets like containers in the dungeons for the slaves to ease themselves. So you can imagine those who were sick, who were very weak and could not get closer to the containers will have to ease themselves. They were women, they had their menses, they were in the same condition, and they were eating in the same place. So a lot of them died. And then, as I said, when you die, you carry the body will be thrown into the sea. Let's continue.
In the stillness we gather, the waves are singing each heartbeat, the reason of life makes us cling with drums echoing, know that the whispers of time. As memories fade away, we're lost in the rhyme. Voices drift softly, they echo the past. In the arms of the ocean, our hearts beat as light like prayers on the wind, floating far from the shore. We surrender to our sorrows forever no more. Let the waves heal, let the waves heal. In the silence, find peace, let the heart beat.
The square diagram that you see down there, it's a compass, navigational compass for direction. So in the compass, you see that we have 4 cardinal points. north, south, east, and west for direction. And at the same time, it serves as a sundial. They put a stick at the center of it, and they use the shadow of the stick to tell the time. This one. And they fill this mold with water from here up to the end. And the bridge that you see over there, the drawbridge, they can raise it up to close the entrance. So no one will get a chance to enter the castle for security reasons. Security was tough. And all the cannons that you see are original. All these cannons. Any question? This is where we are ending.